The slum was alive with chaos. Children's laughter mingled with the clang of pots, distant arguments, and the low hum of life eking itself out in a place where dreams often went to die. Linda sat on the uneven dirt floor of her family's tiny home, a blunt pencil in her hand. Her knees were scuffed, and her brow furrowed in deep concentration as she sketched a dress on a scrap of brown paper. It wasn't just a dress, it was a vision, vibrant and bold, with swirling patterns that seemed to leap off the page. In her mind, the dress shimmered in colors she'd only seen in nature, the rich orange of a sunset, the deep green of plantain leaves. "Linda, what are you doing?" her mother asked, pausing at the doorway. "Designing," Linda said simply, not looking up. Her mother sighed. "Dreaming won't feed you." From the corner of the room, her grandmother chuckled, her hands busy sewing patches onto a pair of worn trousers. "Dreams are the seeds, child. They just need soil to grow." Linda beamed at her grandmother, the only person who seemed to understand her. She spent countless hours by her grandmother's side, learning how to stitch, hem, and sew with skillful precision. The old woman's hands moved with a rhythm that felt like magic, transforming frayed cloth into wearable art. But outside their small haven, the world was less kind. At school, Linda faced whispers and mocking stares. "What kind of black girl dreams of being a designer?" one boy sneered during recess. "Stick to cleaning houses." Linda clenched her fists, but her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind, "Dreams need soil to grow." She held her head high, walking away without a word. When the day ended, she returned to her sketches, adding more detail, more flair, as if each pencil stroke was a step toward proving them all wrong. The night wrapped around the slum like a dark cloak, but in their tiny home, Linda's imagination burned brightly. The seeds had been planted. The factory floor was a symphony of chaos. Machines whirred and hissed, fabric was dragged and snipped, and supervisors barked orders like drill sergeants. Linda stood hunched over her sewing machine, her fingers moving swiftly but carefully, piecing together yet another dull, gray uniform. The heat was oppressive, and the air smelled of oil and sweat. Linda wiped her brow with the back of her hand and glanced at the clock. It was barely noon. Her back ached, but she pushed through, the rhythm of the machine her only solace. During her break, Linda sat outside under the meager shade of a tree, pulling out a folded piece of paper from her pocket. It was her newest sketch, a dress with flowing lines and bold patterns, inspired by the vibrant fabrics she'd seen her grandmother use. "What's that, Linda?" asked Clara, a coworker and one of the few friendly faces in the factory. "Just an idea," Linda said, shrugging, but her tone betrayed her pride. Clara leaned closer, her eyes widening. "You did this? It's beautiful. Why are you wasting your time here?" Linda smiled faintly. "Because dreams don't pay the bills." The bell rang, signaling the end of the break. Linda tucked her sketch away and returned to the grind, her dreams momentarily buried beneath the piles of fabric. But late at night, when the factory was silent, Linda would stay behind, collecting discarded scraps and stitching them into small pieces of art. Her coworkers noticed. Some whispered admiration, others laughed behind her back. But Linda didn't care. Each piece she created felt like a tiny rebellion against the monotony of her life. One rainy Saturday, Clara approached Linda with an urgent request. "My sister's engagement is next week," she said. "I can't afford a fancy dress, but could you make something for her?" Linda hesitated, glancing at the fabric scraps she'd stashed away. "I'll try," she said. For the next 3 nights, Linda worked tirelessly, transforming the scraps into a stunning, vibrant dress. When Clara saw it, she gasped. "It's perfect. She's going to love it." At the engagement party, the dress stole the spotlight. Guests whispered and pointed, marveling at the intricate design. Word spread quickly, and soon, Linda was receiving requests from neighbors and friends. Her heart swelled with pride, but doubt lingered in the back of her mind. She was just a seamstress in a factory, a black girl from the slums. Could she really make something of this? One day, as she worked on a new design, Clara handed her a small flyer. "There's a boutique in town looking for new designs. You should show them your work. Linda stared at the flyer, her heart pounding. It was a chance, but it was also terrifying. What if they laughed at her? What if she wasn't good enough? But then she remembered her grandmother's words, dreams need soil to grow. Clutching the flyer, Linda made a decision. She would try. Linda stood outside the boutique, clutching a bag of her designs. The building was sleek, with polished windows that reflected a world she had only imagined herself a part of. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The boutique owner, a tall woman with sharp features and an air of disdain, barely glanced at Linda's portfolio before saying, "We don't really cater to that demographic." Linda's chest tightened. "But my designs aren't for one type of person. They're for everyone." The woman raised an eyebrow and reluctantly flipped through the sketches. Her lips pursed. "These are bold. But we have an image to maintain." The rejection stung, but Linda refused to let it break her. As she left, Clara's voice echoed in her mind. "Why are you wasting your time here?" Determined, Linda decided to showcase her work independently. She began sewing late into the night, crafting dresses from the scraps she collected. Her grandmother offered encouragement, reminding her of her talent and worth. When Linda completed her collection, a series of outfits inspired by her African heritage, she held a small showcase in her neighborhood. People of all ages came, drawn by the vibrant colors and bold patterns. But as the buzz grew, so did the backlash. Some critics dismissed her designs as too ethnic, or not mainstream enough. Others questioned her ability to succeed in a predominantly white industry. Linda stood tall, her voice steady as she addressed her detractors. "Fashion isn't about fitting into a box. It's about breaking free of it." Her words resonated with the local community. People began sharing her story, and slowly, her designs gained traction. The turning point came when a local journalist attended one of Linda's showcases. Impressed by her talent and story, the journalist wrote an article titled, "Sewing a New Narrative, Linda's Journey from Seamstress to Designer." The article went viral, catching the attention of a well-known stylist. A week later, Linda received a call. A celebrity was interested in wearing one of her designs to a high-profile event. Linda worked tirelessly to create a gown that would embody her vision. On the night of the event, the celebrity stepped onto the red carpet wearing Linda's creation, a stunning dress that seemed to flow like water, adorned with patterns that celebrated her roots. Social media exploded with praise. Suddenly, Linda was receiving calls from fashion editors, influencers, and celebrities. Her work was hailed as fresh, bold, and necessary. With the newfound attention, Linda realized she needed to take the next step. She started sketching plans for her own brand, envisioning a future where her designs weren't just statements but movements. Still, doubts lingered. She worried about managing the financial and social challenges of launching her brand. But every time fear crept in, she reminded herself, dreams need soil to grow. And now, Linda had begun to plant a forest. Linda's hands trembled as she adjusted the collar of her blazer, standing backstage at what would be her first independent fashion show. The venue was modest compared to the grand halls of Paris or New York, but it was hers. A long runway stretched before her, lined with seats that were slowly filling with journalists, influencers, and curious spectators. Months of preparation had led to this moment. She'd poured her savings, energy, and soul into building her first collection. Each piece reflected her journey. Bold colors symbolized resilience, intricate patterns honored her African heritage, and modern silhouettes defied conventional expectations. As the lights dimmed and the music began, Linda peeked out from behind the curtain. The first model strutted onto the runway wearing a flowing gown of deep indigo, embroidered with golden motifs inspired by her grandmother's stitching. Gasps rippled through the audience. The show unfolded like a story, each outfit a chapter. The audience's applause grew louder with each piece, culminating in a standing ovation as Linda stepped out for the final bow. Tears stung her eyes as she waved, overwhelmed by the moment's significance. But her triumph didn't erase the challenges ahead. Linda faced scrutiny from critics who questioned her brand's staying power. Investors hesitated, unsure if a young black designer from humble beginnings could compete in the global fashion market. Her determination, however, remained unshaken. She started small, setting up a workshop and hiring local seamstresses. Her grandmother's wisdom guided her as she built a team that shared her vision, creating fashion that celebrated diversity and individuality. Linda's designs began appearing on magazine covers and at major events. What started as a single fashion show had blossomed into a movement. She wasn't just making clothes, she was changing the industry's narrative. Years later, Linda stood in her bustling studio, surrounded by racks of vibrant designs and a team of young, talented designers. The air buzzed with creativity as models prepared for her latest show. She smiled as she watched a young designer sketching at a nearby table. The girl looked up and grinned. "Do you really think I can make it, Linda?" she asked hesitantly. Linda crouched beside her, meeting her gaze. "I know you can. Talent and passion don't come from where you're born, they come from within." Linda had become more than a designer, she was a mentor, a trailblazer, and a symbol of hope. Her brand, now one of the most celebrated in the country, was known for challenging stereotypes and uplifting marginalized voices. At her latest show, Linda debuted a collection inspired by her journey, blending traditional African patterns with modern styles. The final piece, a stunning dress that mirrored the one she had sketched as a child, brought the audience to its feet. As the applause thundered, Linda stood center stage, looking out at the crowd. Her heart swelled with gratitude and pride. She had done more than achieve her dream, she had created a path for others to follow. The story closed with Linda returning to her studio late at night, her hands busy stitching a new design. The world outside her window was quiet, but within her, the fire of her passion burned as brightly as ever. Her grandmother's words echoed softly in her mind, "Dreams need soil to grow." And Linda had turned her dreams into an evergreen legacy.